Welcome, and thank you all for joining us for this episode of the Crexi Podcast, an insider's look at all things commercial real estate. In this show, we cover a broad range of topics that cater to commercial real estate newcomers and industry leaders alike. I'm your host, Yannis Papadakis, Business Development Manager at Crexi's auction platform, and today we are thrilled to sit down with Ashley Tyson, the OZ Sherpa, and John Vachon, Senior OZ Strategist at OZPros. A little bit about our guests. Ashley Tyson, Esquire, is the founder of OZPros, the leading opportunity zone consultancy. A leading consultant and attorney on opportunity zones, tax advantage structures, and investing strategies, Ashley has advised over 500 commercial property investors, family offices, investment advisors, and high net worth individuals on how to best maximize their tax savings in real estate investments, how to maximize the positive community impact of their projects, selecting an optimal investment strategy, and properly navigating the applicable regulations. Ashley is an engaging and enthusiastic speaker and guest covering topics such as opportunity zones, tax-advantaged alternative investments, real estate, and tax planning for leading national conferences and educational seminars. John Vachon is a prominent collaborator and influencer in the OZ arena, sharing his expertise through advising, moderating several groups within OZ Works and OZPros. He's an experienced sales professional with a demonstrated history of over 20 years in the real estate development sector and 15 years working in orthopedic surgical sales industry. His main focus is opportunity zones and their potential generational impact on American communities from a financial, social, and environmental perspective. Over the past 20 years, he's worked on the Urban Synergy team that has amassed 23 properties in downtown Kingsport and worked to adaptively reuse many of them as urban lofts, loft office space, retail, restaurant space. The team has identified 15 of those properties as qualified opportunity zone properties and have packaged them to sell to a QOF or investor. Both, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Yannis. It's an honor and a privilege to be here.
Thanks, Yannis.
So I know we just covered a little bit of your backgrounds, but I'd love to briefly hear more about each of your career paths and some lessons learned along the way.
Maybe I can go first. I like to call myself a reformed attorney because I wanted to stop practicing and actually get in the game. I went to big law, did big law for a number of years, left there to go in-house with a commercial real estate developer and tenant and common syndicator, and had a great experience there. It was fantastic until it wasn't. When the recession of 2008 happened, it kind of derailed the entire TIC industry. So I doubled back into mergers and acquisitions and built up an M&A practice, helping Main Street America, with Wall Street level sophistication on transactions. We developed a software system to do that, and I sold that practice back in 2017 so I could help business owners keep more of what they make. And as we did that, I found out about these wonderful things called opportunity zones. And I was like, holy cow, that's like private equity and 1031 got married and had a beautiful baby that is the form of the greatest economic-based tax incentive ever created by Congress. And so I said, we're in, let's repurpose this software system that we had for doing M&A activity, and let's roll that out for opportunity zones. And let's put this unbelievably powerful tax incentive into the hands of the backbone of the American economy, which is the Main Street entrepreneur, both in the form of real estate and in the form of operating the businesses. And so that's, kind of what led me to here. And along the way, I met John, and I'll let John kind of do his background. But man, it synced up well, and it's an awesome duo. I love working with John on OZs.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's really funny because it's not something that we've mapped out, right? That we could have even predicted 10 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, or when we first started our careers. And so, I grew up in Northeast Tennessee. My mom is from England. My dad's from Massachusetts, New England, and I grew up in Northeast Tennessee. So again, it was one of those things that growing up, I traveled a lot and got to see a lot, but had a really great upbringing. Went to UT Knoxville, and I was actually applying to medical school when I got a job in surgical sales. Right, that brought me back to the Tri-Cities, Northeast Tennessee. I always say it's where Tennessee meets Virginia, North Carolina. It's a very beautiful area. really centrally located. But that's, with surgical sales, I also traveled, went to conferences in a lot of, large metro areas, right? So New York, Chicago, DC, Philly, Boston, San Antonio, right? And a lot of these had redeveloping downtowns, right? This is when the downtowns were starting to revitalize, and you had that big mix. It was like transitioning, where you had a lot of homeless problems, a lot of violent crimes, but at the same time, you had some just millions that were going into hotels and urban lofts, and restaurants and things like that. So again, it was this transition, and it was like, well, started getting into real estate and buying up, single family homes, and then, discovered our first downtown property, right? And it's like, oh, wow, this is amazing, right? It's got, amazing brick walls and high ceilings and, just incredible character, right? So just fell in love with the architecture of it. And I always say it's architectural archaeology, right? You're peeling back the layers and really discovering history, in real time. So it was very cool to be able to experience that. And, one building leads to 23 buildings. And, it's just one of those things that, next thing you know, and at the same time, again, doing surgical sales, afforded that opportunity to be able to do this as kind of a side hustle that turned into the primary hustle. So, that's when 2017, 2018, found out that large part of the parcels of the portfolio was in an opportunity zone. Right. And so I was like, well, let me figure out what these are. Started learning about it. And yeah, again, synced up with Ashley as I'm learning about these things. And, I learned from one of the best. I always say Ashley's one of the top minds in OZs. He's on several boards, advisory boards. He speaks with actually the day after the election, we were in DC, and he was speaking on opportunity zones. And so we're seeing a lot of consumer confidence, a lot of enthusiasm about the economy as a whole that we haven't seen in the past few years. So we're very excited about where it's going, and the fact that you can get non-traditional investors, like, those recognizing gains from crypto, stock, things like that, selling businesses. There's no way to defer that, say, through a 1031 exchange, right? 1031 is a like kind exchange. So this affords them that opportunity to be able to kind of get into the game, recognize gains from their crypto or stock, and put that into tangible property or operating business. Again, another differentiator.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but it used to be that way before they reformed the 1031 rules, where, you could put it in, any other type of investment, so I think it's for people that have been in the industry for quite a while. An opportunity zone's kind of, going back to the glory days of, tax deferment. And, like you said, one deal leads to 10, leads to 20. I had a mentor in real estate that told me, deals make babies, right? So speaking of mentors, I'd love to hear who yours were and how they helped shape your career path. Ashley, why don't you go first?
Yeah. So, I had some great ones coming along. I had, and what's funny is that he kind of started out as a non-professional mentor, but I picked up so much from him in the form of real estate, just knowledge and expertise. But this guy named Bill Greer. And at a rough time in my personal life, he came in and just dumped rocket fuel into my tanks about just bolstering confidence. And, that's what a mentor, a true mentor really does is, it tells you that, hey, listen, man, you've missed your greatest chance to fail. And that was one of his favorite lines for me. And that has been an awesome, opportunity for me to kind of turn it around and to now pour into others, kind of like he did with me.
Fantastic. And John?
Yeah. Bart Kaiser, he was one of my first managers in surgical sales. And, he always talked about, selling on value, right? And on uniqueness. And that's exactly what we have, again, with the downtown buildings that I'm in. That's why we're in that sector, but also with opportunity zones, right? It is that uniqueness. There's a lot of value to it. And so it's not just selling on price. He said, never sell on price. It's a race to the bottom, and you'll never win that. And so, again, that's something that has always resonated with me. And I want to find those niches that are unique. Again, that there's a story to it, right? And it's something that is dramatically different than other vehicles that are out there.
Ashley said something interesting. You missed your greatest opportunity to fail. Could you share any maybe favorite mistakes or things that may have course corrected you onto your current path that at the time maybe you didn't realize or recognize as an opportunity?
It's funny is that, and I regularly talk to my boys about this, is that, the single greatest decision that you will make in your life, well, there's a couple of them, but one of them is that, who you choose as a spouse. And I didn't do so good the first time around. and I ultimately did the second time around. And as bad as I had it the first time around, I got it doubly as good this time. So I would say that choice and then the growth opportunity that came through that, right, was and it's funny how I think that a lot of times economic hardships will flush out kind of issues within relationships. And so everything came crashing down at the same time in roughly 2008, 2009. And I remember that I was a single dad. So I got full custody of my three little boys that were 2, 3, and 5. And I was living in a 1,000 square foot condo, and I was starting a law firm at the same time, that M&A firm that I was trying to grow. I would have to take conference calls after they went to Mother's Morning Out, and I'd have to take them out on my porch. And I can remember like holding the door shut out on the porch while they were in there like beating each other up. And so thankfully they're actually normal, right? They made it through me being a single dad. But that was, I think, one of the greatest learning opportunities for me, was to kind of come through not only relational challenges, but also economic challenges. And, it tests your grit. And I think that being resilient is one of the greatest qualities that we can have as human beings. And thankfully, we do have that.
Fantastic. What a great story. John, same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are too many problems, too many issues, too many mistakes to even list them or even quantify them. But I think that's the thing, right? Ashley hit it on the head. It is about resilience. It's about adversity, and it's about, again, those challenges in life aren't meant to destroy us. They're meant to make us grow, right? And we have the opportunity to grow and be better than we were yesterday. So I think that's the thing, is just, stubbing your toe, hitting your shin and just moving forward, right? Picking yourself up and continue to move forward, right? There's a famous quote says victory comes from finding opportunities in problems. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people look at problems as problems. And, again, if you look at problems as opportunities, you're going to win out, right? Because everybody's running from them. You're running towards them. So you can solve it.
Yeah, absolutely. Any daily habits or practices that have become essential to your career, to your business, could be commercial real estate related or otherwise, like meditation or, daily reading?
So I do this thing called the Miracle Morning. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but there's a guy named Hal Elrod who kind of coined that term. But I start out with a gratitude journal, 3 things I'm grateful for. I then write my wife a note. I leave a sticky note on her mirror for the morning. And that's actually been kind of cool because I've been able to kind of compile those into a notebook right over the course of the year. And then I read scripture, meditate, and then, do whether it's a short or a long workout, depending on what day it was, but try to get that done in the first hour of the day. And man, it really sets the day into, it gives me what I need in order to be able to overcome the challenges of the day.
Great. John?
Yeah, no, mine's very similar. Wake up and first thing is, God, thank you for another day. Help me give you glory in everything that I do, right? And just, again, going into that, with a fresh perspective, definitely try to work out, get moving, get the coffee, and then, devotional, right? And just lean into that. And just that alignment with God is just everything for me to be able to have that perspective, right? Especially with, the chaos that's around us, whether it's the short term, with the election now this year, people get all sideways because of, whatever direction you're on. Right. And so again, everything around us is temporary, right? There's one thing that's eternal, one thing that's a solid foundation. and I'm going to be anchored to that while everything around me can be chaos. And so, yeah, for me, it's just that perspective. And yeah, to Ashley's point, when you go through something relationally, such as a divorce, which I just did, a year and a half ago, it does give you perspective, right, on what really matters. And so, again, I'm better off for it. I wouldn't sign up for it, but I'm better off for it.
I can tell you one thing as well. Don't do a workout with John. He kicks my butt whenever we're together. I'm like, no, dude, we're not doing that workout. We're doing mine.
Is he like Mark Wahlberg up at 4:30 a.m. ready to hit it?
Exactly. Knock it out like 100 freaking pull-ups, man.
Well, shifting gears a little bit, let's get into the nuts and bolts of opportunity zones. So to start us off at basics, what are opportunity zones? When did they first appear? And what are the goals of the program?
Yeah, so they were created by the Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017. And I said earlier that I think they're the greatest legislatively created tax incentive that we've ever seen. And basically what it allows you to do is it allows you to take any capital gain and you can put that into a qualified opportunity fund within 180 days. You get to defer that gain until December 31st, 2026, which will probably get extended out, this next coming year. And then whatever your new investment is, whether it's in real estate or in an operating business, the growth of that asset after you hold it for 10 years and you get to hold it up to 2047 is going to come out completely tax-free with a step up in basis to fair market value, which not only eliminates capital gains, but also eliminates depreciation recapture. So Congress, in its infinite wisdom, and I actually got to give them I got to give them kudos on this. In 3 pages of legislation, got the attention of private capital, got it off the sidelines, and made it patient, which is incredible. And one of the other things that they did is they did it efficiently by giving the governors the ability to designate up to 25% of their low-income census tracts as opportunity zones. And so these zones were set back in 2018. You could go to OZPros.com/map to find where the zones are and to specifically search if an address is in a zone. And so if you are doing a business or you're buying real estate in one of those opportunity zones, then you get that tax benefit of that step up in basis to fair market value. And what it's done is it's brought investment into these areas that have traditionally not seen investment. And, I think that the latest estimate is over $150 billion worth of investment into these areas that really needed it. And I get story after story because I talk to so many people about this stuff, about the massive positive social impact that's happening on the people in these zones. So it's not just gentrification, it's actual businesses, it's jobs being created. It's really cool social initiatives that people are doing. It's awesome projects that are really making a difference. And I think that that's the coolest thing about this program.
So I see on Crexi, the opportunity zone tag on, plenty of properties that are out there. And, you mentioned that there is, tax deferral incentive coming from any type of capital gain. Does that apply to any gain you realize with that opportunity zone property as well?
John, you got this one?
Well, so what you're looking at, right, is the initial gain. And so, right, we tend to section this out because there are a lot of myths and misconceptions out there about opportunity zones, what qualifies, what doesn't, right? And so that's what we do every week, every day. Inside of Ascent, OZPros, we have a mastermind, and it's this community of investors and developers, right? And so it's keeping them in between the buoys, so to speak, as you're navigating. And so the thing is, right, you've got the initial capital gain. Right. So one, it allows them to defer that. So let's say somebody sold crypto, right? Now, right. It's hovering around 100,000 a share. Right. And people were like, is it going to break through that ceiling? And so it did. Right. But it's hovering and it's back and forth. So a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to take some chips off the table. I'm going to recognize a gain in that crypto, but I don't want to pay tax on that in March or April. All right. So what do I do? And you can't 1031 that, right? So typically, right, 1031, it's a like-kind exchange. You're selling an investment property, you got to put it into another investment property. So you sell that, you got to put total net proceeds into an escrow account that's overseen by a QI, a qualified intermediary. You have 45 days to identify substitute properties and 180 days to close on that. It's a pretty tight timeline. We've seen a bunch of people that have had failed 1031s, and they're like, crap, what do I do? Well, OZs gives them that bailout because you don't have to have the property identified, right? You don't have to really have an idea of what you're going to do. And it gives you the flexibility to be able to take back your basis and just put your gain into the fund within 180 days, right? So then you've got what you're doing is you're buying time to then look at your options, right? That's one of the biggest things that is a huge differentiator, right? So you're taking back your basis, just putting your gain in, right? But again, let's go back to crypto. So let's say somebody sold crypto, they could take that gain and within 180 days of recognizing that gain, put it into an opportunity zone fund. And then they've got time, between 6 and 12 months to drop that into what we call a qualified opportunity zone business, right? So what that does, these are both LLCs that are typically LLCs that are taxed as partnerships. And what it does, it allows them to then put it into operating business or business property, right? That's another big differentiator between that 1031 and OZs, right? So then as they're growing this, right, it's the assets in the fund. If you grow that over 10 years, right, you can exit that and not pay capital gains on the increase, right? So let's say the basis is $1 million. You grow that and you sell for $3 million, right? Your gain would typically be $2 million. You're not paying capital gains tax on that. The other thing is there's no depreciation recapture, right? Because you're taking a step up to fair market value. Another huge differentiator. With the 1031, it's a great deferral program, but all you're doing is just kicking the can down the road, right?
Eventually,
just deferring that.
Yeah,
right?
Eventually it's going to come back up, to surface, and
that's it.
You won't be the one to realize that stepped up basis, right? Somebody, hopefully your kids will, but yes. It's typically not going to be you.
Yeah, it's a great terminal wash to a 1031 exchange, right? So let's say somebody's been 1031, and I've actually got in our 23 bars, we've got like 8 or 9 1031s tied up in there. So I'm looking at this to be able to recognize the gain, take back the basis, put just the gain into a fund, and then be able to scale that again through operating businesses or property and carry that forward. When I sell, then I'm not paying capital gains on the increase, right? So what it's doing, it's meeting the intent of the Opportunity Zone program, one, in getting capital gains off the sidelines, like Ashley talked about earlier, right? There are 8,764 opportunity zones throughout the U.S. So there's some really good ones, and they're probably right in your backyard in a lot of cases. So it allows people to, again, put money into those, and it's patient money, right? So it's got to be at least 10 years. But a lot of people are like, well, what if I want to carry it forward further than that? Well, this runs all the way till 2047. So there's a nice long runway to really be able to see places and some of those places that may be less desirable right now, but you can see on the radar that, hey, they're going to be in 10 years, they're going to be phenomenal, right?
Right. Well, we've touched on some of the benefits, and I mean, aside from the obvious, huge tax benefits with, deferring capital gains and even getting that stepped up basis, you've got the benefits of really being able to transform a neighborhood and, to have positive social impact in areas that, really need investment and, positively influence, the people that live there too. What are some of the challenges behind opportunity zones?
I think that as we kind of get into the brass tacks of OZs, like one of the biggest challenges for folks is just keeping track of the timelines. So that 180-day period is really important. Now we've got some flexibility that you don't normally have based upon whether it comes in through a partnership or an S corporation. We can start that 180-day period at later dates, which gives us a lot more flexibility. Or if somebody has a failed 1031, we can use it to salvage that. But if they miss their 180-day period, then there's nothing that we can do on that. The other one is that once they put their money into a fund, they've got between 6 months and a year to deposit that into either property or into a qualified opportunity zone business, which they can then use to buy property. And if you don't hit that deadline, then you are going to be hitting the underpayment rate and penalties. And that can be really expensive. And so I think that that's one of the things that, people just got to be really cognizant of. And we help people through that through the mastermind ascent that we talk about. We talk about this on a weekly basis about people's deadlines and what they need to be paying attention to. And so we've got the resources to be able to help people through it. And then we regularly do kind of LinkedIn lives and other type of kind of promotional things to just be like, hey, listen, we're coming up on June 30th. We're coming up on December 31st. These are the things that you need to be paying attention to. And if you pay attention to it, you're usually okay. It's when people kind of get caught up in their, the mess of busyness, and they kind of put it on the back burner, that's when it can kind of come around and sting them, right? That tax tail can sting.
Yeah. And, our audience is, generally speaking, largely focused on commercial real estate. And so there's probably a lot of familiarity there with, deadlines in terms of, doing 1031 exchanges, working with a qualified intermediary. But who else should be paying most attention to opportunity zones? John, you mentioned, people with crypto gains, right? Who are some other people that should be, taking a close look at opportunity
This
zones?
question's one of John's favorites, so I'm going to let him take this one. He's passionate about this one.
Yeah, I mean, it really is, right? You look at 1031 exchanges, right? And depending on what figures you look at, what stats, what facts, all that, typically it's about 100 to 150 billion a year, right? Well, crypto alone in 2021 was 162 billion, right? As far as gains, that was in 2021, right? I can't wait to see what the 24 numbers are going to be, right? It was over $1 billion in one day, just maybe about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So again, there's a whole lot more. And then stocks, right? That's 10 times that. It's like 1.5 trillion in capital gains annually, right? So it's a massive opportunity for those folks who really don't have a way to defer that any other way, right? So stocks, crypto, selling a business, typically, again, you can't like-kind exchange that into a property. So it really opens up a lot of avenues. But, let's say somebody's got appreciated gold coins or baseball cards, right? Anything like that, jewelry. You used to be able to do art as a 1031 exchange. You can't do that anymore, right? So how are you going to be able to, one, defer that, and then two, put it into something that's tangible, that's going to appreciate over time and appreciate capital gain free, right? There's no other program, right? And it just blows our minds that, we're getting a lot of kind of the usual suspects as far as real estate developers, but being able to also put this into operating businesses alongside property, I couldn't imagine anything better.
Yeah, I think that a couple of really key people that we've been able to help is anybody that's experiencing short-term capital gains, they can defer as well, that is out of that's never been an option before. So options traders, we helped a guy who's doing $100,000 a month in gains through options trading. God bless him. I need to have him manage my money, right? But
yeah, wow.
we were able to help him set up his own fund, and he was able to put that money into a fund. And then he had a passion for classical cars. And so we were able to help him put together a business that actually was around classical cars, right? Antique automobiles. And he was able to, gain to be able to put the cash into those. And now he's going to be able to exit those when he wants to exit them tax-free. And we've done the same thing with art collectors, with guys that antique guns and machine guns, right? It's it's really cool, how wide a breadth of things that you could actually do with this. So it's pretty neat.
So it goes really beyond real estate and into, the opportunity zone businesses as well, really open a pretty creative door into how you can, structure, this tax deferment and really maximize your exit. And I mean, I think that's phenomenal. Can you walk us through the life cycle of an OZ investment from fund creation to exit?
So the question is, walk us through fund creation?
Just from
the life cycle of
life cycle. Yeah. Some, from soup to nuts, fund creation to exit, you can use a real example or make one up, whatever.
Yeah. And that's what we do. I mean, literally we've set up over 1,000 of these, maybe the most in the country. I don't know. I'm not keeping track of some of the other big kind of white shoe shops, but certainly think that from a smaller standpoint, we are, but we've got a fixed price for doing this, but we set up your qualified opportunity fund, which is just an LLC taxed as a partnership. We set up your qualified opportunity zone business. Once again, that's an LLC taxed as a partnership. You take your capital gain, you drop that into your qualified opportunity fund within 180 days. And then if you don't have an exact use for it, or you don't know exactly what you're going to do, if you need to, you can borrow the money out against it. You can, you can stick it into a high yield savings account. And then the key thing is that you are in control of it. Then you drop that cash down to the QOZB. Once again, if you don't have an immediate use, you can borrow the money out as long as it's under 18 months or less. You get the money back in 18 months, and then you need to deploy that cash within 31 months of deploying it in. So from the time that you start, so from the time you had your gain, you've got 180 days. So that's 6 months. Then you've got another between 6 months to a year. So let's call that, now we're tacking on 18 months from the date of the gain. And then you've got another 31 months on top of that. And so we're talking about 49 months, right, from the date of the gain before you actually have to spend the money in the zone. Then, once you buy something, if you buy something that's an existing building, you're going to need to double the basis of the value of the building. And I'm not going to get into the weeds of that right now, but effectively, you just look at how much is the building approximately worth, and then I need to double that. And you can do it with by expanding the footprint. You can do it by adding an ADU, building on property contiguous to it. There's a litany of things that adding solar, buying equipment that's crucial to the business, right? So if you're running an Airbnb, the furniture, fixtures, equipment, that's going to count towards that doubling the basis. And then you hold that investment in the fund for 10 years, not the actual asset. And then when that investment turns 10 years old, every asset that's owned by the fund is then eligible for a step up in basis to fair market value. So you sell it, and no matter what your basis was, now it's equal to what you sold it for. And so you pay zero taxes, zero depreciation recapture. And so for your smart commercial real estate investors, they know that they're running a cost segregation study on that. They're using that to bonus depreciate. They're taking that, so they're effectively taking the money out of it tax-free, and then they're exiting it on the back end tax-free as well. And you can do that. You can do that over and over again, all the way up until 2047. And so that's kind of the general life cycle of it, is that, man, why would I not get the game? So the key is that you got to have a fund, and you need a capital gain in a fund that is aging. And once that occurs, now you've got this vehicle that you can use on every capital asset that you owned. So you just have to own the asset for 367 days, and you're able to take the step up in basis to fair market value on it. It's really powerful.
Awesome. I mean, how, and John, maybe you can answer this one. How has the opportunity zone market evolved since its inception?
I think dramatically. In 2018, when it first came out, there was a huge buzz, right? In 2018, 2019, huge buzz about it, right? Everybody was wanting to figure out how to do this, and people were, buying opportunity zone property, speculatively, right? And just saying, and it was wild seeing that. Now it took them 2.5 years to finalize the regs, so it was a moving target for the first, couple of years, 2-3 years. And I think that dissuaded a lot of people. A lot of people lost interest and said, well, it's too complex. And, as the window is shortening towards that December 31st, 2026 deadline, people are saying, well, the deferral, it's not as big a thing. There are a couple of other, kind of discounts, 10% and an additional 5% that have already expired. So there are things like that are incentives that have expired. So we've seen this transformation. But I think people who have been investing in OZs have recognized how beneficial it is and have doubled down. They've also told friends and family about it. They've told other investors and developers. So really word of mouth is kind of getting the word out there and expanding that net of network. So I think, again, as we're going into this new phase with the economy, we're going to see more and more people, but also the fact that, as Ashley mentioned, we highly anticipate that the regs are going to get extended, that this program is going to get extended, and that we're going to see it actually bolstered and benefited, and probably see like a version 2.0, right? So a lot of people ask, are there other opportunity zones that could be added? that's on the table, right? It's not for sure, but it's on the table. And so I think we're going to see that transformation, as we go along, and which will bring more investors in.
I'm curious, and I'm sure to people that are new to opportunity zones, this may be a basic or even a dumb question, but let's say you buy a property in an opportunity zone. Can that opportunity zone designation be removed from that property? Does the map change, or once you buy it, if it's in an opportunity zone, you get that full benefit until your exit?
Yeah, so you do get the benefit, and if you buy, that's why we say buy early, because it's highly unlikely that they're going to remove that status. If they do change, there are a couple of very prominent ones in California, in downtowns, that people are saying, how is this an opportunity zone? Well, remember that this is based off of the 2010 census tract, right? The census numbers. So a lot happened between 2010 and 2017, 2018, when this program was initiated. Certainly a lot has happened since 2024 when we're filming this. So you have a lot that's happened in those areas that has made them appreciate value. So that's why we always say there are some really incredible opportunity zones out there that people are going, how is this an opportunity zone? This is amazing. And so, it could be beachfront property, could be, waterfront, could be, again, revitalized downtowns, right? So Ashley, I'll let you, I know you talk about this often.
Yeah. So there's the current legislation that was pending last year that did not, make it through. Didn't get out of I believe it didn't get out of the finance committee, was that it would, so there's a number of things inside of the OZTIAs, what they call it, the Transparency Extension and Improvement Act. And one of those was that they would grandfather in any census tracts that are now above 130% of the poverty line. And so if you get grandfathered in, that's exactly what happens. You get grandfathered in, which is why, to John's point, get in the game now. Go and do it, right? Because as long as you've got at least $250,000 even earmarked for a deal in there, you could just be under contract on a deal, you're going to be grandfathered in for that zone. Similarly, if you've got an operating business going, you're going to be grandfathered in that zone for the balance of the program. Now, the other thing that it would do is it would allow the governors to designate new zones, which I think is going to be a really powerful vehicle in the legislation that we see coming up, is that we want to make sure that we get new zones and we get new kind of life pumped into those zones. We also saw some legislation that was focused on extending out into rural opportunity zones, and it would create another 1,000 rural opportunity zones. And I think that we can we're pretty sure that we're going to see something along those lines where it probably merges the two of those, which would enable the folks that are out there kind of in the hinterlands to be able to draw some of the power of this investment vehicle, which is really exciting. And most importantly, give the governors the ability to designate more zones.
Yeah. And I mean, that really kind of takes us to our next topic here. So, now that we understand the basics, I'd love to ask more questions to contextualize opportunity zones and their broader relationship with the economy and local communities. So what's the bigger picture impact of opportunity zones? On our prep call, you mentioned opportunity zones' potential for generational impact on American communities. Can you elaborate on this?
John, why don't you take this one?
Yeah, of course. I mean, you look at this, and a lot of people, their life's work has resulted in a capital gain. Right? They've sold a business, or they've sold property. Again, they've sold appreciated stock that was passed on to them, and so this gives them an opportunity to take that gain. First of all, defer it, right, and not pay taxes on it next year. They're able to then put that into property or operating business, and then grow that tax-free, right? Capital gain tax-free. The beauty of that is that aligning this with estate planning is really, really critical, and tax mitigation strategies, right? So you're really maximizing that seed capital gain that you have and growing that exponentially, right? Then being able to pass it on. So we always say it's about, right, preserving your capital gain, right? Maintaining it, right? Growing it, and then passing that on to the next generation, right? So within this, it does allow for that to be able to do that significantly and make a significant impact, not just with your family, but also the community that you're investing in, right?
Yeah.
Because again, it meets the intent of the Opportunity Zone program, which is, they want to see investment, that is patient money that's going to stay there, but also they want to see job creation, right? And all of this it's economic development 101. Right, so communities should be embracing this and really understanding their opportunity zones and using that to put themselves out there and say, hey, come and invest with us. We will work with you to be able to really grow whether it's a downtown area or, an area that's in economic distress, right? Some are better than others. And so this really allows that opportunity and I see downtowns. Again, I'm very passionate about downtowns. Downtowns are the heart of a community. Right. And when a downtown changes, it changes all of the community around it. Right. And the downtown is the unique component. Right. Each downtown is different. Right. It tells a story about that community, whether it's big or small. And we're seeing a lot of outmigration from these major metros, primary markets, where maybe the deals don't pencil out like they did, 5-10 years ago. Right. We're seeing a lot of that, but we're seeing that investors are still, they're still hungry for deals. And they're looking at secondary and tertiary markets. Right? Opportunity Zone allows them to be a little bit more ambitious on what they're picking and understand that they can buy something and let it appreciate over, say, a 10-year hold. And so it gives them that. So everybody in their mind can think of a revitalized downtown that, it's significantly greater than what it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Well, imagine buying into it, before it took off. And we're talking like, multipliers, right? 10x, in some cases, and so being able to do that in a downtown where you see downtowns that significantly have a higher appreciation growth than most areas, that's where it really can make an impact.
Yeah. And I mean, just the social impact there of, more jobs, right? More jobs, more people, more income, it really grows the community and revitalizes an area that needs that investment. So, not only are you making a great, financial impact on, your own gain, but you're also impacting the lives of, everybody in the area that you're investing in. So it's a really everybody wins type of program, which I don't think we see a lot of these days.
No.
In today's commercial real estate market, it may be worth it to talk about distressed assets and auctioning properties. John, you've mentioned working with such projects in the past. What unique opportunities do these present in opportunity zones?
Yeah, they align perfectly with opportunity zones because you could take a building like the one I'm in right now. It's 25,000 square feet.
Are you in an opportunity zone right now?
Absolutely, yeah, right in the heart of one. So, and downtown Kingsport is one of the best opportunity zones in the Southeast that I've seen. Again, geographically, centrally located within a day's drive of 70% of the U.S. population, right? But you got character like this, the old adage, they don't build them like they used to, is absolutely true. And so a lot of people, a lot of investors, right? For the past, say 10 years, and 20 years, it's always been on, IRR and, ROI and, again, cap rates and, it's just number crunching, right? This really turns that around a bit, in that you can pick up a property oftentimes for less than you could actually build it new construction, especially in, the economy that we're in, right? Where construction costs have increased.
Yeah, through the roof.
Inflation, interest rates have increased. All of these factors have added to that and whittled down that bottom line. So that's why a lot of deals aren't penciling out. So I think it's offering the opportunity for a lot of investors to kind of take a little bit of a different direction and say, well, I can buy that building, and maybe, for instance, it's, 50 a square foot, right? And they're able to then get it back to the bones. I always say, again, that architectural archaeology, right? Taking it back to the bones, seeing what the building wants to be. A lot of times you can, put in urban lofts, you can put in co-working spaces, you can put in restaurants, you can put in office. These are very, very flexible buildings for a lot of different areas, right? Boutique hotels are really significant in downtowns. And so we're seeing that. But then also, like green data centers, and I'll let Ashley talk about that. That's one of our clients, right? Our group loves talking about green data centers, right? Being able to mine Bitcoin and things like that. But, back to, again, these buildings, it allows the room for substantial improvement, which is one of the requirements for opportunity zones. So again, let's just say they buy a building for $500,000, right? They put another $500,000 into it, right? Now they've got $1 million basis, just easy math. They can then get that thing cash flowing, get it stabilized, right? And it allows them to grow that asset while everything around them is appreciating in value as well. And again, downtowns significantly appreciate at a much higher rate than other areas around. So you think about the building stock in secondary and tertiary markets throughout the US that's just sitting there, right? And so when you also look at it, adaptive reuse of old buildings, right? It's 16% less expensive. It's 18% faster, right? And typically you have a 10 to 15% increase on your ROI, and they appreciate significantly greater than other areas, right? So again, it makes a ton of sense to be able to do that and build out a place, again, you're affecting the heart of a community and being able to grow that.
So Yannis, we've got a fund ourselves. We've got the OZPros Qualified Opportunity Fund, and we made a lead investment into a hotel developer down in Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is it is like literally the poster child for how opportunity zones are positively affecting an area. And almost the whole, they got special dispensation to where they got to designate all of their low income census tracts. So 98% of the island is an opportunity zone. And we were able to buy a downtown building that had been an office building, and it had been vacant since the last hurricane because of the damage. It just didn't make economic sense for the owner to redo it. So we were able to buy that building, 7 stories. It had literally kind of homeless people and tenements and stuff like that inside of it. We're able to gut that building, and we're going back with a 47-room hotel that is going to be one of the leading hotels of the world. And so it's actually the first leading hotel of the world on Puerto Rico. And by the way, we still have equity available in that deal if anybody's interested. You got any hotel operators out there? But we're really excited about that. And I think that that's kind of case in point about how the program works. Yeah. Is that that asset will now become the linchpin for that neighborhood. It's going to drive traffic. It's going to drive jobs. I mean, we're already hiring, we've got to hire, I think 75 people, and, they're going to be very high paying jobs. And so, I think that that's case in point of how this program works and why we're so excited about it.
And I mean, looking into the future of opportunity zones or opportunity zones 2.0, what does it look like in the next few years, right? It was a Trump administration idea. Do you see it continuing, growing in the near and long-term future?
Yeah, so I'm part of the Novogradac working group, and we talk about this on a regular basis, kind of like what our wish list would be. We'd love to see it where there's not just capital gains, right? That anybody can play. You don't have to have a capital gain in order to do it, which is one of the requirements right now. So that's one of the first ones. We'd love to see it be permanent, to where there's a rolling basis where the governors get to designate the zones. We'd also like to see that there is reporting about the positive benefits that you're having on the people inside of the zone, which I think that we can kind of count on. I think the really exciting thing is that about the Trump administration, because they were the ones that were there, and they were in the White House when this first came out. They did an excellent job of creating and maximizing the program with other governmental programs. So created this thing called the Office of White House Revitalization Council, and Scott Turner was the head of that. And they literally went and said, hey, each cabinet person, we want you to make opportunity zones some kind of special benefit within the programs that you have. And so they became this kind of inflection point for uniting all of these different disparate governmental programs. And I think that we're probably going to see that happen again, particularly because Scott Turner is going to be the Secretary for HUD. And it'll be really exciting to see how he takes opportunity zones and kind of expands them to where I think we could probably see the Community Reinvestment Act, the CRA, and the requirements for banks get involved inside of OZs. And if that happens, I think we're going to see an explosion of investment, an explosion of deals, which ultimately benefits everybody.
Right. Now, pivoting a little bit here, I'd love to get your insights on the commercial real estate market in general. Any thoughts or insights, markets that you're, really tapped into, focused on, and what type of deals should investors really be looking at right now?
Go ahead, John.
Their imagination really is the limit. And, again, when you open it up, not just to properties, right, development types, the fact that you're opening up to operating businesses as well, I mean, it really does. They're with the QOZBs, basically the ones that don't qualify are quote unquote sin businesses, right? And that's a very short list, right? Golf courses, massage parlors, liquor stores, hot tub facilities. So it's an antiquated definition of sin business, but again, it really does open up a lot of opportunities. So we see so many people coming to us that are looking at, potentially like franchises. They're looking at, being able to do, like build, again, boutique hotel is one of them, storage, self-storage, facilities, incorporating solar with that. Ashley, in his fund, he's got boat and RV storage. And that's something that people get really excited about because they're like, oh, I could definitely do that. I've got a lake or a river or, ocean nearby. Right. So again, things like that just, they're fun investments to do, but also really sought after by, people, consumers, So again, as it really opens it up. Whereas say 1031, I think is kind of a narrow, you can only do so much. And,
Right.
The thing is, right, you're typically buying a property that is already developed.
Right.
This allows you to do the value add and be the biggest benefactor of that growth, as opposed to buying it from somebody who is benefiting from that growth, right?
So
I think that's where the biggest differentiator. But that's where, again, OZPros, right? We have that weekly community where people check in and they may be like, hey, I'm looking at doing this or this. What do you think? Right. So
I love to see where people have joined and combined the power of commercial real estate with operating businesses.
Yeah.
So we've got a gentleman that is a client, and he created a mixed use kind of flex industrial center inside of an opportunity zone. He then set up as an opportunity zone business a call center and a scheduling deal for the folks that are in kind of more the blue collar space. And so that makes it more attractive for them to come be a tenant. He can charge a higher dollar for that. He then makes money off of handling that for them, which is a much needed thing. He handles a back office piece, so he's got accounting team and that kind of drill. He gets to see the businesses and which ones are good, and then he makes lead investments into them, right, through his opportunity zone fund, and then helps them grow and exit on the back end, and he's doing it all tax free.
Amazing.
And so I love that kind of nexus of creating, a hub that's taking advantage of, not only just taking advantage of, but being a real solution to real issues that we have right now. We've got a silver tsunami on our hands. And if we don't take action in some of these rural communities to provide a vehicle for them to be able to exit or provide succession planning, we're going to see a ton of jobs, a ton of, intellectual capital, people capital, that's going to go out the window. And so I love things like that takes this tax program and it becomes, once again, that inflection point for being able to solve some of these issues that are happening out there.
Awesome.
I think another component that it really is hitting is housing, specifically low income housing, because that's something that is really, it's needed in so many communities. Right. And I think that's something that it just adds to that bottom line, right? So it makes these deals, it makes a good deal a great deal, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, being able to have such a positive impact on something that is, so needed in so many communities is there's a way, like I said, it sounds like it's a program where when done right and when being guided by, experts like yourselves, everybody wins. We're running out of time here, but before we go, I do have a couple of quick fire questions that I'd like to throw at you guys. John, I'm going to hit you first with our first question here. And if you were given $50 million today and had to invest it immediately, what would your go-to asset type and location be, and why?
Well, first, 10% is going to a Glory to God fund. All right, if I got that set up, donor advised fund. And again, being able to make impact in the community that we're developing. I think it would be absolutely a combination, a co-working space that helps businesses to, again, grow as an opportunity zone business, right? So it's that education component, helping them scale, like Ashley just outlined. And then there are a couple of operating businesses that I've got an idea on that, I think could be transformational. So, definitely a couple of businesses. And then, a flex industrial space, I think that's not going away anytime soon, right? And you can do so many things with that, including the green data center as a component of it and some other things like that. So again, you're diversifying your portfolio, and that's exactly what I would do, if gifted that. So
awesome. Ashley, what's the least conventional way you've found a new client, social media or otherwise?
So I've got the OZPros, which is a 38-foot Class A RV that it's an Outlaw, and it says Outlaw on it, like in 4 different spots. So I went and I had it re-decaled, right, where over the top we put our logo, and we've got a big QR code. And somebody who was running down the road saw our thing, right? It was like opportunity zones, right? And so they took a picture of it, right? Got to our website, and we got a client by driving the OZPros, which is pretty freaking cool.
I love that. You're gonna have to send me a picture of that. I need to see that.
Yeah.
John, what's the most common misconception about your job or industry?
That it's going away, or it's already expired, or it's too complex. All of those are major misconceptions, major myths. And yeah, it's funny because you've got a lot of professionals, CPAs, financial advisors, real estate brokers that are dissuading their clients from even looking at opportunity zones. And the biggest thing is that they don't understand it themselves, and they don't want to talk about something they don't understand. But the real beauty of this is that they don't have to understand it. They don't have to know it. They just have to know that it is beneficial, that it's not going away. In fact, it's going to, expand, if anything, right? But they don't have to know it. And that's what we have, right? We have that community that they're able to plug into and really build that foundation. 3 years ago, I didn't know anything about OZs, right? I learned from the best right here in Ashley, but being in that community really helps you, again, build that foundation of knowledge, and then let your creative juices flow and figure out, really the sky is the limit when you're looking at how many possible ways you can invest into opportunity zones.
Excellent. And you look, real estate people, I think, are creative people. I've interviewed a ton of brokers, principals, everybody has a different way of approaching the business of real estate, commercial real estate. And I've seen some pretty creative businesses out there and ways that people interact with commercial real estate. This really adds such an interesting layer of creativity. So for those of you that are out there that, are creative, which I know there are a ton of creatives in commercial real estate, I absolutely recommend engaging with OZPros to, find ways to engage that creativity and, benefit everyone through doing so.
And I think this gives them an opportunity to get rewarded for that creativity.
Exactly.
Right? They're taking a risk, and it's that risk reward. But again, the reward on this is just so much far and beyond what any other program is out there.
Yeah.
And you can layer other things, right? You can layer new market tax credits. You can layer, low income housing tax credits. You can layer historic tax credits with this. Again, all you're doing is you're just stacking that, and you're building out that capital stack that is just, again, you're adding to that bottom line.
Incredible. I certainly learned a lot today on this episode, and I know our audience did too. As we wrap up, any parting words you'd like to share
Yeah. So if I got one piece of advice, it's, reform, right? So I don't like to practice because I want to get in the game. Get in the game. Get your fund set up. Get a capital gain. Figure out a way to generate a capital gain so that you can have your fund, because it is an extremely powerful vehicle once you get it aged 10 years. And along the way, you're going to have a lot of fun. You're going to do a lot of good. And then ultimately, you're going to save a lot of money in taxes. So get in the game.
And I'll say, this is a component to their overall investment thesis. Have this as a component. If you have your vehicle in place, your qualified opportunity zone fund and qualified opportunity zone business, not every deal necessarily needs to be an OZ. We have a lot of our clients that are doing a mix of both, but this should absolutely be a part of that diversified portfolio, because I think once they learn about it, they'll shift more and more over to that as they get more comfortable with it. But yeah, to Ashley's point, get in the game, right? It's not going to get any better than it is today, right? Well, actually, it may get better than it is today.
Let's hope that it does. But
your 10-year clock starts, when you first start, with that investment. So yeah, people who recognize crypto, you can either pay that tax in April, right, or you can defer that a couple of years and figure out how to mitigate that tax and put it into property and operating business. So.
Fantastic. Well, thank you both for joining us and sharing your insights. I know you're both very busy, and we appreciate you spending time to sit down with us. Where can people find you online if they want to get in touch? Email, social media?
Yeah, so if you go to OZPros.com/podcast, we've got special promotional offers for your listeners. Once again, that's OZPros.com/podcast. You can also find us at YouTube.com/OZPros. We've got a ton of educational content out there, and we'd love it, right, if you guys could take a gander at those and subscribe, and share if you like. But once again, we got some special stuff at OZPros.com/podcast.
Yep. Or you can hit the QR code wherever that may be, and it'll take you right there.
Yeah. And so, again, thanks for joining us, and thanks to everyone who tuned in today. If you enjoyed this episode, do not miss the next one. Visit Crexi.com/podcast and sign up to get the next episode delivered straight to your inbox. Of course, you can also subscribe to the Crexi Podcast on your favorite podcast app, and check out our YouTube channel for video recordings of each episode. Take care, and be sure to tune in next time.